Hey everybody, this is Dr. Osborne, founder of Gluten Free Society, here with an update for you. We try to put these updates out because we know going gluten free can be a challenge, and sometimes there are food sources that mimic gluten. So this is a part of a series of videos called Gluten Mimickers, and I want to really warn you about dairy. So what you're seeing in this diagram that I've got here on the screen are dairy dangers for the gluten sensitive, and very, very much mean that because there are a number of different factors about dairy that we have studied and researched that we know can create or mimic a gluten-like response. So let's break them down in this video, and I'm going to blow this up a little bit for you. So what we're looking at here, the first thing, you can see meat glue. Now I've talked about meat glue. If you want to, you can type in meat glue in our search engine here, and you can find a number of other videos and articles that we've wrote in depth about meat glue. But meat glue is an enzyme. It's produced by bacteria. They actually ferment this enzyme, and it creates a pink slime that is used in dairy products as a thickening agent and as a shelf life preservative. Unfortunately, what researchers are finding, actually, there's some great researchers doing studies on it's called microbial transglutaminase, but what they're finding is that meat glue actually causes and mimics celiac disease. So people with genetics of gluten sensitivity getting exposure to meat glue, for example, can actually develop the gut damage and the immune damage associated with gluten exposure. So what does that mean? That means that if you're buying dairy in the grocery store, you've got to be very meticulously careful that the products you're using do not contain any form of MTG, microbial transglutaminase, aka meat glue. And unfortunately, right now as it stands, there's no food label law requirement for meat glue, so they don't have to list it on the label. So the best thing you can do when you're buying your product is call the manufacturer and ask them if they use meat glue or microbial transglutaminase in their processing. Now, let's move up and over to lactase. So lactase deficiency is another problem that many people with gluten-induced damage. So gluten induces damage in the GI tract. And one of the things it can do is it can damage the cells responsible for producing the enzymes. It can damage the brush border where a lot of these enzymes are produced that help you digest dairy. One of them is called lactase. And lactase helps you break down the sugar lactose, which is found in dairy. And so if you've got years of gluten-induced damage in your gut and you're not producing adequate lactase, that when you go and you use dairy products, you might suffer with what people call dairy intolerance, or milk intolerance, which is when you eat it, it blows up your stomach, it creates irritable bowel-like symptoms, it can cause diarrhea, it can cause constipation. So there are a number of symptoms associated with a lactase deficiency. So kind of the hallmark here is the higher the quantity of lactose in a dairy product, the more symptoms a person has who has a lactase deficiency. So again, if you've got years of gluten-induced damage from and your GI tract and you don't produce adequate lactase, that could be one of the reasons why you struggle with milk, even though you're on a gluten-free diet. Now, let's go down here, another element, this third element, BCM, that stands for beta-casein 7. It's a type of protein found in what's called A1 milk. Now, most milk in the U.S. and in most industrial countries are A1 milk. A1 refers to the genetics of the cow. So A1 cows are producing a casein protein, which is one of the proteins found in dairy, that can look like gluten. Researchers have shown that this BCM7 protein from A1 milk can mimic gluten, can contribute to autoimmunity. So very important that you understand that, because if you're not buying certified A2 milk, this could be one of the problems that you're having. Now, if you've ever heard of like local farmers who have Jersey cows that are A2 certified, this is why. This is what they're referring to, because the other type of cow is called an A2 cow. There's A1 cows, there's A2 cows, and A1 milk can be autoimmune inducing, and A2 milk is generally looked at as a much safer option for people who have autoimmune problems, particularly gluten issues and celiac disease. Now let's go back up here over here to added gums. You know, added gums, a common thing. A lot of people going gluten-free, what do? They gravitate toward the almond milks. They gravitate toward some of the other nut milks, the hemp milks, etc., coconut milk. And even in regular milk, and this is the case with ice creams and other confections. So if you're using those things or eating those things, know that gums are added to thicken it. And there's a lot of different kinds of gums. There's carob gum. There's xanthan gum. There's carrageenan gum. And a number of other gums. And I'll put a link below this video to a page on toxic food gums, which ones are safe, which ones to be aware of, because there's certain gums like carrageenan gum that can cause intestinal inflammation. So if you're using a product like a milk-based product that has a carrageenan gum, you might still be struggling with intestinal inflammation, even though you're, again, gluten-free. So just be aware that can be the case. I'll put the article below this video for you so that you can go read the in-depth on added gums, which ones to avoid, which ones are safe. Now, one of the other components to dairy is the added hormones. There are a number of different hormones that are added to dairy into the feed of the cows before they're even milked. It's actually part of how we can make cows milk as much as they do, are the hormones that are added. So an example of one of these hormones is called recombinant bovine growth hormone. And a number of studies show that that this can create hormonal imbalances. This can lead to or trigger excessive acne in people. It can create problems in their hormone cascade. So this is where I would recommend, if you're doing any dairy at all, look for purely organic with no added hormones from an A2 cow where there's no added gum and there's no added meat glue, and that you don't have a lactase deficiency. See how this is all adding up, and this is why so many people get frustrated, because they try going dairy-free and they still feel bad, or they try going milk-free but still eat cheese because they think they have a lactase problem, but in actuality they're getting gums and meat glue and hormones, and those things are disrupting or creating their problems. So again, just important to know that all these things are factors in whether or not dairy is going to be a problem for you while you're going and trying to follow your gluten-free diet. Now, another one is the molecular mimicry of gluten. There have been a number of studies that show that the dairy proteins themselves can actually mimic, in some people, gluten. And so molecular mimicry, where, again, the two proteins, casein and gluten, look a lot alike, and the immune system can have overlap in that reactivity. So if you're highly gluten sensitive and you're drinking a lot of dairy and you're not responding to the gluten-free diet, cutting out dairy altogether might be the option that you need to take. As a matter of fact, when people come to see me at my practice, I take them, if they are gluten sensitive genetically, I take them off of dairy for at least 6 months. And if we're going to do any dairy in the future, it needs to come from non-processed dairy with no added gums, no added hormones, from A2 dairy cows. So again, hopefully this video helps you navigate the dairy dangers, right, for the gluten sensitive individual. And I'm going to just kind of scroll down here as well, because I want you to see some of the references. This is not me making things up. This is science, folks. And I want you to know that all these videos that I shoot for you and do for you are based in science, but also based in the clinical, because I'm fortunate to be in both worlds. I get to be in the world of science, but I also get to be in a clinic where I'm dealing with people on a regular basis. So this is Dr. Osborne talking about dairy dangers for the gluten sensitive. If you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure you hit that little bell right there to get notifications and subscribe. Also, take a visit over to glutenfreesociety.org. Make sure you sign up for our gluten-free survival guide and survival kit. It's free to you, and there's tons of resources and information just like this video to help you navigate your gluten-free diet in a much easier fashion. So this is Dr. Osborne. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you in